Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and for this week, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Scott, and we go through a really fun topic of choosing our top 10 new Overland SUVs. So we go through all of the really credible platforms in the North American market. This is not an international list. It's intended for North American available vehicles. Some of these vehicles are available in other markets, or they're available in similar variants in other markets. But we have a really fun conversation of who ends up where and why, some of the pros and cons of each. We really dig into the nitty gritty and make sure to express our opinions around the things that we're concerned about or the things that we really love. So please enjoy my conversation with Matt Scott on the top 10 new Overland SUVs.
And a special thanks to Kuat Racks for their support of this week's podcast. Their new Ibex has landed. It's actually overlanded. This groundbreaking bed rack is effortlessly handling substantial loads both on and off the grid. Constructed from lightweight yet durable aluminum, it boasts a ballistic black powder coat made for all the nature you can throw at it. It's available in 6 different frame sizes to accommodate most truck models, and it's equipped with telescoping crossbars, numerous T-channels, and a versatile full and half height configuration right out of the box. This is the Ibex from Kuat. It is engineered for adventure. For more details, please visit kuat.com. Kuat, because you will absolutely love this bed rack.
Matt, we are finally back together here on the podcast, which is good.
You're not gallivanting around the world.
Africa's been so wonderful. It just it is so a part of my soul right now that I'm grateful for every chance that I get to go there, and traveling through Tanzania was wonderful, and traveling through Kenya was wonderful, and so far the Grenadier has been flawless, like not a single failure. So
I'm excited.
I'm going to keep hoping for the best. It's got such potential for sure. And today we're going to talk about Overland vehicles. So we have done a podcast on the top 10 used Overland vehicles,
but never the top 10 new Overland vehicles.
So this is going to be the top 10, our top 10 list for 4-wheel drive SUVs that you can buy in North America. We will likely do another one
that you can buy new.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think the one caveat is that there's a few models that maybe should be on the list, but they have a replacement that is so imminent that maybe even by the time this podcast is available, you probably couldn't even buy one.
That's right.
There'll be a new model. So.
And they would be the other criteria. We're fortunate that we're able to test all of the vehicles on the market, but like, for example, the new GX is coming out. It's imminent. We're going to be at the press launch, but we have not driven the vehicle yet. We've seen it in person.
Yeah.
Tons of things to love about it, but we really can't recommend it in the top 10 because we haven't tested it yet. So you can kind of use that as a gauge. But the Lexus GX, the new one, and the new Land Cruiser are both going to be formidable considerations for this list.
Very much would be at the top of it.
Yeah, they'd be pushing towards the top of the list. So we need to have that little qualifier around there. It certainly doesn't mean that Toyota isn't well represented on the list that we have.
Yeah.
So so we're gonna start with number 10, and we're gonna work our way up to number 1. So we can have a bit of a drum roll, and people can maybe think about models that wouldn't have normally been on their lists by some, covering some of these ones towards the 8, 9, 10 range. So we Matt and I talked at length about this. We were originally going to maybe have 2 different lists, but then we actually just worked it out together, which I think was a really good exercise.
And I think we agree on it.
We do now. Yeah, now like we're like that feels like the top 10 list. So number 10 on the list, it hurts me a little bit to say it, but number 10 on the list is the Land Rover Defender, the 130 in particular. And it's so difficult to talk about it because I love the Defender 130. I think it's a great vehicle. Every time I've ever driven one, it has completely exceeded my expectations. Yeah. But it's really difficult to to recommend the vehicle actively to people when they're still struggling with so many reliability issues.
Let's talk about some of the positives.
Yeah.
Right. It's phenomenal on road.
Yeah.
It is really great off road. And when you kind of consider that mix of on road and off road, you're kind of deviating from center, and that the Defender just goes so far in either direction. Like, it's very good on road. It's a hoot to drive at speed off road. It's very capable, in slow speed technical terrain. I love the interior. Just like
my favorite interior.
My favorite interior on a vehicle ever. You just get in, you throw your stuff, just like you would in a regular Defender. You have this huge kind of like dash parcel tray.
Yeah.
The interior is great. The front end is hideous. So just don't look at it. Don't park in front of one of those windows that has like the reflection mirror thing, because you're just going to see what Jerry McGovern thinks an off-road vehicle should look like. But every other angle is really, really nice. But you can't get around the fact that Land Rover as a brand is still dealing with issues that other car companies haven't dealt with reliability-wise for 20 years. There's JD Power, which we looked up to verify. For 2023, Land Rover is the least reliable major vehicle brand sold in the United States.
Yeah.
Lexus is at the top of that. Almost a 2-to-1 spread between Lexus and Land Rover. And you can't.
Yeah, so you have a 200% more likelihood of your Land Rover having a problem than a Lexus. So.
And, there's the diehard Land Rover fans that bought, the Defender and are enthusiastic about it. I mean, to be clear, like, Scott and I are both in this because of Land Rover. Like, we love the Land Rover brand.
And I love the car.
Yeah. We sit here with a Defender behind us.
That's right. We're recommending vehicles based on this list, so we have to be really transparent about the realities of things. I would drive a Defender 130 gladly. Like, I would enjoy it, and I wouldn't worry about the reliability. I've owned a lot of Land Rovers.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me, and it's all part of the adventure for me. But if I'm going to recommend a car to someone, they need to know that there's still a lot of challenges that they're dealing with.
It's just like, if you were a company that historically had struggled with electronics, do you think that you would do an electrically supercharged, turbocharged, mild hybrid engine?
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, take a little bit out of the Toyota book.
Yeah.
Like, don't be ancient like Toyota is with some of their platforms, but it's on the list because it has great payload. It has a huge roof load capacity, dynamic roof capacity.
And it's a wonder to drive. I mean, when you and I drove them in Namibia, the 110, fantastic. I drove the 130 and the 90 in the UAE recently, out to the border with Oman.
The 90
fantastic.
Is so cool.
Yeah,
you can get a V8 in the 90.
I know, it's insane. It's the Defender 90. For me, it's one of those cars where I just randomly think I would like to buy a Defender 90 because it would be a super fun, daily driver. And we talk about like these classic, like a Range Rover Classic or an early Discovery. The new Defender 90 has a 2-inch longer wheelbase than those cars. It is easy to dismiss this thing as being too small, but it's actually as big as all of those early, like, super sought after.
It's
Land
super
Rovers.
Cool. It's,
I like it.
The
I like the
Defender's
90.
a vehicle that will put a smile on your face.
Yep.
Right up until the point when the motor goes poof.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I have 2 friends that have bought them that are not on their first engine. Yeah. And it's just when you have that, like, that real world connection, it's really hard to ignore.
Yeah. So if you're not concerned about reliability and you want a super cool vehicle, take a look at the Defender 130. It's certainly something that I've been very impressed with in its performance.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So now number 9 on the list, and this is the first of the Toyota products that we're going to cover, and a lot of representation on Toyota on the list, but this is the Lexus LX600. So the LX600 is a new platform. I've driven these vehicles extensively. and they're based upon the Land Cruiser 300, this FG platform. So it is a Land Cruiser by all measures, including a lot of the engines that would overlap, just like previous versions of the LX did. Yeah. The LX100, the LX80, the LX200, those were all vehicles that were very, very similar to a Land Cruiser. This is as close as we get to a Land Cruiser in the United States, and this is a full J-Series heavy-duty Land Cruiser platform. It is number 9 on the list because we just aren't seeing aftermarket support yet. There's some challenges with the ground clearance on the vehicle, particularly on the front, the approach angle. And it's also very expensive. So if you want the most reliable and luxurious and actually very unique, because they're almost impossible to buy and still surprisingly capable, like the Lexus LX is kind of a wonder in its own right.
It is also the ugliest vehicle on the list. Like it's actually,
you think so?
It's actually uglier than the front end of the Defender. I personally really dislike it.
I don't know.
The design language is obviously changing with the forthcoming GX model, which I think is one of the
best looking SUVs. Yeah, for sure.
But all these little, horizontal fins, and I don't like it.
It's a really big grille, and that compromises the ability to modify the vehicle with the aftermarket. So if we're going to take a vehicle like an LX600, which is something you could drive around the world, it's designed to do that, but then you can't put on things like front animal strike protection. You can't install a winch easily. Some people have made some attempts, but there just really is not aftermarket
support.
Like
you end up with these very weird kind of like rock crawlery, not sure what they're trying to be bumpers.
It's tough. And so you've got an incredible platform, but you really have some limitations around the aftermarket support of what you would need to go overlanding with it. Yeah. And you just spent $130,000 on the thing. So absolutely phenomenal vehicle. If you want the most reliable family hauler that's, luxurious and will never break down on you. But when we're talking about buying an overland vehicle, especially comparing it to what's coming out with the new GX, the LX ends up lower on the list.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so then above that is kind of the opposite, but same category. So extreme luxury in the extreme signaling in the G-Wagon. So there is definitely luxury to it.
I love the G-Wagon. So number 8 is the specifically the G550. G63 actually for this generation. So there was the W463 that was sold in the United States from early 2000s to 2018. 2019 came around and the vehicle was completely refreshed. It has independent front suspension, which a lot of people at the time were like, oh, yeah. Well, if you've ever driven a G-Wagon, they have no suspension travel.
That's right.
So now wasn't a downside. Now you have a G-Wagon that can boogie. It actually has some flex and travel in the rear.
Still has a front locker though.
Yeah. Triple locked. Yep. And it's, from my experience, they're very well made,
extremely well made.
Made in Austria by Magna Steyr. And the cool thing
and you and I have both owned both owned G-Wagons, and we've loved them.
For 2022, you can get kind of a watered down professional pack. So you can actually get the genuine Mercedes roof rack. You can get the genuine Mercedes brush guard. Comes with a 18-inch wheel with an all-terrain tire. There's a lot of advantages to the G-Wagon, but they're very expensive, and there's no way around it. Like it's the 911 of off-road. I believe the starting price is around $135,000. But then when
and that's not with that professional pack with all the racks. I bet you the rack is $10,000.
I think it's a $20,000 option.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the thing with the G-Wagon though, is they just depreciate on a different time scale. There's so much demand for them. And not only in the US, but one of the things that keeps G-Wagons very desirable in the aftermarket is that they can get exported to any country in the world. We lose a lot of G-Wagons in the United States after they get driven for a couple of years. They'll get exported. keeps the prices very high on them. You know, if you can find a 2019 G-Wagon now, so we're selling 2024 model year, so that's 5 years old.
Yeah.
They are still selling for MSRP with 40, 50,000 miles on them. So it is very expensive, but when you look at that total cost of ownership and then the depreciation, like, you know, let's compare it to a Grand Cherokee, which historically just like nosedives after a couple of years. The G-Wagon may be more expensive to purchase, but it may not be more expensive to own.
Yeah.
You know, and it's still very reliable.
Go get a loan for $130,000 at 8% interest right now.
Yeah,
so
absolutely not.
Yeah,
do not do that.
Yeah, I think that the G-Wagon is very much worth considering if you are looking at things like an LX600 and other similarly, or a Range Rover. If you're looking at similar priced vehicles, it's really important to go drive one. It's the longest I ever owned a vehicle. I owned mine for 12 years and I loved it. So there's a lot to it. I don't like the fact that the vehicle is so associated with signaling now.
100%.
That feels uncomfortable to me, and it was part of the reason why I sold my G-Wagon. Is I just don't want to be signaling everywhere I go.
Yeah.
But it is an exceptional vehicle, and it needs to be on the list because it still is an exceptional vehicle.
You know, overseas, there's the W464, which is the utility model. I just wish that we got something like that.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of for the German car enthusiasts. That's our equivalent of the 70 series in a lot of ways. But you're right. There's a lot of really, really, really terrible people that drive G-Wagons.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be okay with being associated with that, even though you may be buying it for different reasons.
Yeah, I loved it when I got mine because nobody knew what it was. Looked like an old Montero.
Yeah, the G-Wagon all went wrong when they put the stupid like LED lights below the headlights, and you know they kind of changed that with the new one, but basic is the way to go with the G.
Totally. But it still needs to be on the list. All right, so here's kind of a bit of a surpriser for people, but it's based on my own experience driving it. Matt's driven it as well. Number 7 is the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk 4xe.
Oh, yeah. Like, it was so surprising. So we had a Range Rover plug-in hybrid at the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk 4xe in the office. I immediately went for the Range Rover because, you know, Grand Cherokee's kind of, you know, like
standard. It's like
standard,
average.
You know, it's average. It's something that you would expect to get as a rental car.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to be a better vehicle than the Range Rover.
And
I mean, the Range Rover has little softer seats and it, you know, has more signaling and whatever, but, you know, it had better. It was just better. I think it was just better made.
Yeah. I mean, if when we've talked about this a little bit before, but if I was not doing the Overland thing, if I was, you know, if I just had to have a corporate job and got to get away on the weekends and drive something every single day, I would absolutely buy the Grand Cherokee 4xe because you can get 35 miles or so, 30 to 35 miles of electric only range, which usually covers your commute. But then you still have, you know, rear locking differential, center locking differential, airbag, adjustable suspension. Yeah. It really performs well off-road, like shockingly good. And there's some nice aftermarket support for the model, including winch mounts and additional skid plates. And it has been the surpriser car of the year for me. There's been a lot of cars I've liked in 2023 because cars are getting really good. And a lot of people are making Overland vehicles now. So our world is really wonderful at the moment, but that has been the absolute standout surprise of the year.
The most underrated vehicle on this list that people just don't consider.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. And it also shows how good the rest of the vehicles on this list are as we get closer to one, because the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk, it's exceptional. Yeah. It's very, very good. So yeah, I'm really, really impressed by that. And I like the fact that it's a plug-in hybrid. I'm starting to lean towards plug-in hybrid more than like my enthusiasm for electric. And it's because I've learned some things about it. I mean, you know, the content of a 4xe, you know, it's the equivalent of making like 30 electric vehicles when it comes to battery content. And then you never have the range anxiety. So In fact, this is a funny story. So I was driving the Trailhawk and I'm coming back to Prescott, and the thing got such great gas mileage and everything. I just forgot about the fact that I needed to put gas in it, and I ran out of gas.
Yeah.
I'm coming down to the on-ramp, the off-ramp off of 17 to drive to Prescott. The car loses power, but I'm going downhill. So what happens it
starts to regen.
So now the thing shut off because it ran out of gas. But I'm going downhill, so I'm regenning the whole time. I regen all the way up to the end of the off-ramp, and I put it into electric mode. And I'm like, this thing is never going to let me do this. It did.
Yeah.
I put it into electric only. Warnings, no, and I made it like the extra 300 meters to the gas station.
I just
so cool.
Plug-in hybrids are really cool. I'm personally such a fan of electrification. On a previous podcast mentioned, I bought a Tesla for my daily, and now it kind of feels like everything's going backwards from that. Like
they're really good.
Like I have carbureted vehicles that I work on myself. I like cars. I like gasoline. I like exceptional.
You still
engines.
Smell like gasoline today.
I smell like gasoline. Well,
and brake cleaner, or what was it?
Balancing 6 individual carbs is, they're in banks of 3, but anyway, that's another story.
For me, it's the convenience. So yeah, my girlfriend Tavia has a 4xe Wrangler.
Yeah.
And we plug it in at the end of the day, and all of the driving around that we do in the place that she lives, we do it all on electric only.
It's just
easy. And then if we want to drive to the sailboat and go do 200-mile trip or whatever, no big deal.
Yeah.
It's got a tank full of gas.
Yeah. Anyway,
so it works great. So
Grand Cherokee, never did I really think that would actually, like, within this list of 10, that might be the one that I actually would put my money down on.
I'm not far behind you.
Yeah.
I'm not far behind you.
I'm not saying that it is, but it would be
a definite consideration for me.
Yeah.
And it's also incredibly handsome. Grand Cherokees have always been good looking vehicles, but this, I think it's just really handsome. Though, a little more upright grille. I like that. All right. So number 6 on the list is the Ford Bronco, which is, it's a vehicle that Matt loves to hate.
I don't know why I hate the Bronco so much, because it's just built like a pile of something that comes out of your body.
You think so?
I think it like the chat. Listen,
I think it's the dash that's still getting you.
It's just cheap plastic. It was just like, I would get into it and I would just think like, they cut some money there. They cut some money there. They cut some money there. They cut some money there.
It reminds me of like a 2004 Tacoma. It's like the most incredibly reliable
gray
vehicle.
Plastic is something that shouldn't be in a vehicle. The driveline is phenomenal. The chassis is phenomenal. What they've been able to do with the Bronco Raptor. Yeah, I mean, it's a hoot, but
the Bronco Raptor was fun. I'm not going to take it away, but a 392 Wrangler is way more fun.
Refined vehicle well.
It's just better.
Yeah.
It just like the Raptor Bronco, the fenders look like such an afterthought. And the engine isn't like as inspiring as you need it to be at that price point and at like that segment. Like,
but it's better than the Pentastar that's in the Wrangler.
But it's not better than a 392 Hemi. So like that, like,
I mean, that's an ancient lump too, but it's a good ancient lump.
It's like sounds so good. But I like actually kind of that standard wild track Bronco, just the, where you get the front and rear lockers, you get the sway bar disconnect, which is the best sway bar disconnect I've ever used. It really works well.
It's a performer.
And it's a great performer. I actually think they're really attractive looking. I like them. I like them in all the colors, which I'm not usually a big fan of a lot of the colors. I like them in all the colors. I like they're kind of got this bluish gray color that I really like. So I would probably build a Bronco with some color to it. I think,
and it's just, that's their vibe with that car. And then they put those stupid fenders on it. And like, as a classic car guy, like, Broncos aren't meant to have fenders. Yeah. Broncos aren't meant to have the cut rear fender that a lot of rednecks did. But like, if the vehicle was just a little narrower and it didn't have those fenders, I think it would look better to me. I can't get past it. I don't know why.
That's okay.
I'm allowed to hate what I hate.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, hate. I don't know about hate, but you're allowed to dislike what you like.
Yeah, I dislike it.
But I do like it. I do like the Bronco. It has, in some configuration, reasonable payload. It's a comfortable vehicle to drive. It's more comfortable to drive than a Wrangler on the highway and on most trail conditions. So the Wrangler is ultimately more capable, but marginally.
Yeah,
so.
And where the Broncos, I'm going to call it just like their packaging. I know that I hate the fenders, but by going with, a wider body and a narrower fender than the Wrangler, it's just a better place to spend time in.
Yeah.
The Wrangler does get a bit cramped after, you spend a month or two in Baja and then you're just kind of like, start itching the inside of your skin. It's just a little small.
Yeah. I had my nephew in the 392 this morning and he's like, this is really small.
Yeah.
It was the first comment that he made.
My head will kind of hit the roll bar.
Yeah. They're a little compact for sure. So I like the Bronco. Matt dislikes the Bronco. But we both agreed that it needed to be on the list because I think I give Ford a lot of credit for making it happen. They do seem to be popular. I'm seeing a lot more of them on the road. And there are some packages, like there's a lot of different options on Broncos.
So a lot of reasons to like it.
Yeah. And look at do the build thing on the website because there's a lot of unique solutions around that vehicle that don't make them very expensive also.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of upside to the Bronco.
I think they even have a sunglass holder for your white sunglasses as well.
And they've clearance for the flat bill cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't mean to go so sideways on the Bronco.
I did.
Yes, you did. You're like, I have the opportunity. So number 5 on the list is a newcomer. It's a model that's been around a long time, but no one ever really considered it for overlanding, and that's the Toyota Sequoia. The first gen Toyota Sequoia was actually pretty good for overlanding.
The Sequoia has always been this silent value.
Yeah.
It has been,
especially in the used market.
Yeah. For so long, it has been associated with, it's a soccer mom car. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like
it was a soccer mom car.
Yeah, it was. It still is. It's the trendy adventure soccer mom car now, but it's a Land Cruiser underneath. It has that same architecture. It's made in the United States. It looks, in my opinion, I think it looks better than the Land Cruiser.
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks good. You have the TRD Pro option, which I think is really cool.
So you get a 33-inch diameter tire. Yeah. You have 5-link coil-sprung rear suspension. Yeah. You have a rear locking differential. You have a traditional low-range transfer case. It's a little bit bigger, which I think is an advantage in North America.
Yeah,
and it's got Toyota reliability. It's I have their hybrid. Now that I know plug-in hybrids, I'm struggling with just the standard hybrid. They don't feel as advantageous to me anymore.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really well-built, solid vehicle that I think works for a lot of families.
And we're starting to see a lot of aftermarket support for it.
Yep.
And yeah, it's definitely kind of in a similar way to what we were saying about the Grand Cherokee kind of sneaking up on that list.
Yeah.
There's all these vehicles that we're talking about, and then there's the ones that are actually practical to purchase.
Yeah.
And this is one of those vehicles. It can take the kids to school. It can tow the boat. It can tow the boat. It can take them to Moab. It doesn't none of these cars get great fuel economy, but it's not terrible with the available hybrid system. Yeah, I think it's a really great option, and it's kind of this underrated nameplate that Toyota has. There's been so much emphasis on 4Runner, Land Cruiser, and the Sequoia's always been there. It's always had, either kind of Tundra based at first, and now, I guess they're all kind of that global.
Yeah, they're
platform.
all based on the same thing. Yeah,
yeah, it's really cool, and I think it's attractive, especially in the white. I really like it in the white.
Super handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've driven them off road even in Moab, and I was impressed.
Yeah,
and at speed they're actually very stable. So I think if you look at general overlanding, you're having to haul a lot of stuff. Maybe you're bringing your family with you. Maybe you're towing a trailer. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're doing a little bit of off road, a little bit of technical, a little bit of high speed, a lot of road miles. It's kind of a sweet spot.
Yeah,
in a lot of the same ways that the Grand Cherokee is. But the Sequoia is worth considering now, and it had never been on our list before.
And a special thanks to O3 Outdoors for their support of this week's podcast. The world is messy. That's the price every outdoorsman pays for adventure. So when we need to keep things fresh, well, we at O3 Outdoors don't just do things halfway. We turn to the same technology NASA uses to clean the space station, and we bring it down to our own frontier. You know the smells, the sweat, smoke, and fuel smells of a proper adventure, the stuff of a true outdoorsman knows firsthand. Our technology here at O3 Outdoors eliminates bacteria and odors on gear or in your homes and on your vehicles. Our Trekker bags allow you to pack, store, and carry your gear, cleaning it the entire time. Our portable Overlander units fit in any vehicle, home, or RV. It's the highest tech, brought to you to the outdoor experience, keeping your gear fresh from one frontier to another. For more information, visit o-3outdoors.com. O3 Outdoors, go explore.
All right, now we're getting into the top 4, so things are getting more and more exciting. So number 4 is a vehicle that would not normally have ended up on the list this high, but to give Jeep a lot of credit, they continue to not just milk the Wrangler, they make the Wrangler better. Like it just keeps getting, which thank the universe that we are in 2023, almost 2024, and we're able to still buy a solid axle Wrangler that you can take the top off of, and it's got lockers and it's got sway bar disconnects and it's got factory winches, and and you can also get it in 31 flavors. So you can go from a very reasonably priced, like sub $40,000 Wrangler, all the way up to $100,000 $392. And I mean, they're not quite 100,000, but
the AEV upfit 20th anniversary, I think, was 120.
There you go. So they've taken advantage of the full spectrum, which I actually think was a good idea for Wrangler and for Jeep. So there's a couple key improvements that's been happening. We've lost the diesel, which is a little bit of a sad thing, but it seems like that powertrain has been problematic. The Pentastar is not problematic. I know that they're going to this new Hurricane Straight 6, so that's going to probably be coming out here soon in the Wrangler, I would suspect. Yeah. But
the Pentastar is not exciting.
Yeah.
But it just works.
It does.
Let's go back 10 years in overlanding. That is exactly what everybody sitting around the campfire would want. Is they just want that proven, reliable, easy to fix engine. They just work. They do. They have good suppliers. It has if you get the automatic transmission, it's the ZF 8-speed. I've ranted on that. It's the only thing that, Rolls-Royce and Bentley agree on is that is a good transmission. It works. There's no creaks in the thing. You can beat the crap out of it.
Yeah.
There's unlimited aftermarket. You can put like an Ursa Minor pop top on it, which is, to me, if I was to build, obviously like I do the Earth Roamer kind of thing now, but if I wanted a technically capable camper, it'd be a Wrangler with an Ursa Minor. Yeah. Like there's zero doubt in my mind that is one of the best, if not the best setups. One of the most traveled people we know, Dan Greck, that's what he did all of Africa in, and they're really good. I just don't know how else to say.
I think Dan's been a great advocate for Wrangler for travel. He's done a good job of keeping them lighter, but like his very first trip through South America was in a soft top TJ, which is awesome. And then he does Africa in a 4-door Wrangler Rubicon with a pop top on it, basically circumnavigates the continent.
He rolled it and then rolled it back over and then kept going.
That's right.
I think it was in the Congo.
Something crazy like that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he did all of Australia in the Gladiator, and then now he's back in a Wrangler, and he cut the back half of it off and he put this custom camper on there. It's cool.
It's super cool.
It's really going to be neat to see how that ends up. But it's really easy around a campfire to just focus on, you can only use a Land Cruiser for this stuff, but there are people that are very credible, like Dan, that are reliably using Wranglers. And he's been clear, like he's had no mechanical issues with these cars.
I have trying to think of how many Jeeps I've owned.
I've owned more Jeeps than anything else, for sure. I'm
not a Jeep. Like, I don't think that I'm a Jeep guy, but I just like always end up driving or buying Jeeps. Like, I don't know. They're capable. They're kind of fun to drive.
Yeah.
You know, let's rag a little bit on the Wrangler because I was so accurate with the Bronco. It's small inside.
Yeah.
And, you know, they do these like the rear. My biggest gripe with the Wrangler for overland travel is that the roll cage is not squared off in the back.
Yeah.
Because like terrible people put those angled hard tops on them so they can just have less space. And it just makes it makes things a challenge in the back. Like it's kind of always in the way. That
very space constrained. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a hot topic. Do they need to ditch the removable top? I think.
Well, it's possible. And I think that they're playing with that idea with this new retractable top. And if I was going to buy a Wrangler and not use it use it for fun, I would absolutely get that retractable top. It's on the 392 right now.
I haven't driven one with it.
Oh, it's incredible. You push a button and the entire top, like almost to the very, very back, certainly aft of the rear passengers, it's open.
Yeah.
Like a convertible.
I don't know. I really like them. I think the important thing to know about the JL is that there's the exterior form factor, and then there is the remaining space on the remaining space inside, because it's not a normal vehicle where it would be boron steel stamped or something, and that would be your actual structure. There's then a redundant. I shouldn't say redundant. There is a necessary and secondary structure inside of it. Like we're both pretty big. I mean, I get cramped in that thing, and if you're tall, like you kind of hit your head on the roll cage, which is like really annoying when you're like doing serious stuff off road. But I don't know. They've
made them better overlanders, and it's one of the few vehicles you can still get with a manual transmission, which is also available as a 7-speed in the Bronco,
and half doors.
Yeah, you can get half doors, you can get a soft top, you can make it super inexpensive if you want. It still has a solid axle, 5-link, coil sprung, and they've also, this is the reason why it's moved up the list, is they have finally addressed our concerns around payload. So it is competitive now with a 4Runner on payload. You can get over 1,400, so 1,437 pounds of payload is the kind of the highest I could see spec'd in the vehicle, but that is impressive. And you can get up to 5,000 pounds of towing now. So, and they achieved that by making the rear axle a full float,
which is big.
So it's a big deal. It significantly improves durability, and it also just starts to address your concerns around payload.
Yeah.
A lot of people tow trailers with Wranglers because they are space constrained inside. So the fact that you can now get a 5,000 pound tow rating, you have a heavier duty rear axle, you have more payload, which means that tongue weight is now, because tongue weight from a trailer is part of payload.
Yep.
So if you got a 500 pound tongue weight, you've now got 700 pounds left for you and your family.
Yeah.
So Wrangler's done a lot of work around, 35% improvement in payload.
That's significant.
I mean, when most companies are going the other direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that, I was really impressed by that from Jeep. They get it. Like they really do get overlanding. They really do. There's people there that must care about it.
They've been involved in the space and in the community for longer.
Yeah.
Than most have.
They really do care about it. All right. So now we are in the top 3. And number 3 is, I know right now, I'm going to hear the screaming and gnashing of teeth. But number 3 is an electric only SUV.
Which is awesome because they're just so much better than internal combustion, ancient 8-track cassette tape cars.
So one of the best vehicles I've ever driven that's an SUV in my life is the Rivian R1S.
100%.
It is handsome. It is beautifully designed. It's incredibly comfortable on the inside. goes like a bat out of hell. I mean, it blows it
fast.
It blows the door off a 392 Wrangler.
It blows the doors off of like a GT3.
Yeah. It's crazy fast. They've now got some variants that have even more range. A lot of people focus on the range, but like for North America, I went to literally the most remote point that you can go to in the United States with the R1S. And we did over 150 miles of dirt to get there and to our next destination, and a lot more miles than that to finally get to another charger. But you just can't get that remote where electric is as big as a problem as most people think it is. I think if people were to sit down and look at all the trips that they've done over the last 10 years, every single one of them can easily be satisfied by a Rivian R1S.
Southern Utah and the Navajo Nation is that last remaining choke point.
And that was where we went.
Yeah.
We went and we drove right through it. We drove right through. There's a video on YouTube where we took the R1S to the most remote point in the continuous 48 states, and it did it. It was like just not a big deal. Not a lot of range anxiety. Worked great. And the advantage that the EVs have off road that people are finally now learning is that they have the regen capability.
Yeah.
So when we climbed up to the top of 50 Mile Bench to get to this most remote point, we used a lot of electricity to do that. You would use a lot of fuel to do that because you're going to get low fuel economy when you're climbing a steep climb. But when I turned around and I went back down those switchbacks, I got to regen the entire time.
Yeah.
So I ended up with more miles, not overall, but then if I had just let a gasoline engine idle down it.
I do. Yeah. Here's my thing with electric cars is that, and I believe that anybody who owns one or drives one will resonate with this. They're just so much simpler, right? Due to modern emissions requirements, which are overall a positive thing, the internal combustion engine is choked up, clogged, and very, very complicated.
Yeah.
You have exhaust gas recirculation, you've got catalytic converters, you've got all of these.
You got DEF or whatever.
In the diesels.
Yeah. Regen, everything.
You have all of these like very complicated systems. You have all of these different sensors that can now fail to optimize the engine. You have fuel injectors. You have all of the moving components on the valve train, the drive train, the transmission, the all of these things that just kind of go away.
Yeah.
And
they do go away.
They do go away.
You have one fluid that you top off in your Tesla, the washer fluid of the windshield wipers.
Exactly. It's
like there's one fluid, and they're just going to get better. I mean, Toyota just announced 700-mile range, 10 minute charging. So it's just going to keep, the technology is going to get there. And for us, we're not advocating for EVs. I'm just saying that
I am.
Well, I'm not
personally.
I'm really not I don't think that we're at the point where I want to advocate for them. I just want to say that the Rivian R1S is one of the best SUVs I've ever driven, no matter the engine.
It's the only car that we've had on test that I've actually just sat down in my driveway and just like looked at how the suspension worked.
Yeah.
And you can tell that suspension came from McLaren engineers.
That's right.
It's really good.
Really good. Genuinely.
It handles phenomenally.
Yeah.
The user interface is so great. Like, this is where the electric car companies are really winning.
Self-leveling in camp. You got your roof tent on the top of it, or you're sleeping in the back. Push a button.
Yeah.
Self-levels the car. It's great. The car drives beautifully. Like, genuinely. Yeah. Thank you for letting me drive my first Tesla ever. That was awesome.
They're just kooky. Like, they work, man.
I got no hate for it at all. Okay. So now we are into the top two. And, this is interesting because the one has been around forever and the other one just arrived. So it would seem like it would be like an impulse to put the Grenadier as number one on the list. But I don't think that it's quite there yet. And that's even though I have a lot of affection for the vehicle, I've been driving it from Cape Town on my way up to London. The vehicle, I've done 20,000 kilometers with the vehicle. I've not had a single failure. It has exceeded my expectations in most regards. no reliability issues with the vehicle.
And that was a press car before.
It was.
And didn't it go to like Kazakhstan or something?
It was slated to go to Mongolia, but they actually pulled it so that way we could do the Trans-Africa trip. But we've talked about this before, but we're not being paid by Grenadier to do this. They've loaned us a press vehicle just like any other company would do that. And we're not being compensated in any way. We're paying for all the expenses of the trip on our own. And I'm free to speak clearly about the vehicle. And it is, for North America, it's the only thing that we have right now that is literally made specifically to do overland travel. So it has 1,800 plus pound payload, triple locked, available factory winch, solid axles, low range transfer case, square body. We talk about the Wrangler and interior space. The Grenadier has a ton of interior space.
Even though the form factor is not that different size-wise.
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah. Very similar wheelbase even. So the Grenadier it's the first time we've ever had a car company start specifically for overlanders, because Sir Jim Radcliffe is an overlander himself. So he wanted to build his own car, and he did. And it is really good, but it is still too early. We have to really be always guarding our audience, and it just needs a little bit more time. I need to finish my trip with it and have my final conclusions around it. And also the number one vehicle is a serious contender still. So it would be hard to make the argument one way or the other. You could say this is number one or this is number two. But there's reasons why we have a number one.
I'm really excited about the Grenadier. I have to say that I did put a deposit down on one. I didn't follow through with it. But the reality is that we don't live in a large city.
Yeah.
So there's a risk to buying a new vehicle from a new manufacturer that doesn't have a real established service network. I have confidence that they will sort all of those things.
For sure.
But the Grenadier to me is, I see a lot of parallels to Lotus, right?
Yeah.
If you want to buy a very purpose-built sports car, we're not talking a supercar, we're not talking a muscle car, we're talking about a car that is for the enjoyment of driving and is phenomenal on the track, phenomenal on the road. It's purpose-built.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many parallels between Lotus and Ineos, in my opinion.
Interesting. In fact, that's their tagline, built on purpose.
Yeah. I want it to do really well.
Yeah. The reason why we're enthusiastic about it, the reason why we're testing it, is it's the first time we've ever had a car company made specifically for us.
Yeah.
So we want to give them all the support that we can. We want to really understand the vehicle. We want them to be successful because, as overlanders, we need choice.
Yeah.
It shouldn't always be, a Defender. It shouldn't always be a Land Cruiser.
And competition's good. Right?
It is really good. It's important.
Think of Bronco Wrangler. I am so excited for what's coming with the Wrangler. I know that from talking to designers friends at Jeep, they have basically said we've had the handcuffs taken off.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of ways that the Bronco's better than the Wrangler, but now we have this vehicle that can be pinnacle for overlanding.
Yeah.
What is that going to then do as that becomes a larger and larger market? What does that then do? Where does everybody else respond? And it's that rising tide raises all ships concept.
That's right.
I wish them the best, and
that we want them to be successful.
And they're going to do a hydrogen one.
Yeah, that's right.
Is like,
and they're talking about battery electric. They're talking about all kinds of things. There's been press releases come out on all kinds of different ideas, and they're coming out with their Quartermaster, which is a 4-door pickup, so a Bucky style truck that's going to be coming out here in North America soon. So they're really working hard to make vehicles that we want, and we want them to have as much chance for success as possible. Mm-hmm. So we're enthusiastic. I do like the vehicle. I have really enjoyed driving it. I have certainly come to love it because it's been kind of my magic carpet through Africa. So I'm really grateful for that. The vehicle that's made for us specifically for overlanding, and it's number 2 on the list. So now we get to go to number 1.
Ooh, yeah. So here's what I want to say about number 1 is we talk a lot about gear. We talk a lot about trucks, but overlanding is not about light bars and all of the new crap that it has become in North America. Yep. It is about travel.
That's right.
So when we think of the best vehicles for overlanding, we're thinking of things that are proven. This choice is not exciting. Like,
I think it is.
I think it's outdated.
It's still handsome.
I think it's outdated. I think it's boring. I think
maybe it's a little boring.
It was good when it came out.
Yeah.
But it's very proven. It's very, very reliable. There's a lot of support for it in the aftermarket.
It's the cheapest car you can buy.
It's one of the cheapest cars you can buy.
Not purchase price, but ownership.
Actual cost of ownership.
Yeah, cost of ownership.
And the number one Overland SUV is the Toyota 4Runner.
That's right. And it's available in Trail Edition. You can get KDSS. You can get rear locking differential. It has a reasonable payload. Some models get up over 1,500 pounds of payload. So it has a real payload. So if you think about buying, and they are still everywhere. Everybody, I mean, you see a ton of them driving.
They just work. They're like, they're a slightly more off-road Subaru for most people, right? They have a little bit more room.
Yeah, that could be.
It's a great choice. It's very reliable. It's ancient in all of the good ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing about it that is like a risk. Yeah. Like, cause some vehicles they're old enough where it's like, wow, that's really the only real standout negative for me is the fuel economy compared to a lot of the other vehicles on the list, but it's almost equivalent to the Grenadier. So they're pretty much the same fuel economy.
Yeah. As I previously mentioned, the one I owned, horrible fuel economy.
Yeah.
I mean, like we're talking within, like maybe half a mile to the gallon of my Earth Roamer.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Once you outfit that vehicle.
4Runners really lend themselves to being kept as close to stock as possible. They're extremely capable in stock form for most overland travel. But they're ready to be of service to you daily commute. I saw that this is one of the best memes I've ever seen. Every once in a while, social media gets a win. But the meme said, the 1996 to 2001 4Runner has been recalled because it's time for you to buy a new car.
Yeah.
It's like they literally last forever.
It's everything that you want from the Land Cruiser.
Yes,
in a more practical, affordable package.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why it's number one, because of anything. If your focus is pure travel, of all of the vehicles that are on this list that you can recommend, to loved ones, to good friends, to people you actually care about, it's probably, if you recommend the 4Runner to them,
but you did them a solid.
With utmost certainty, they're probably not going to have any issues.
Yeah. And they're going to be happy with it, and they're going to be able to resell it for a reasonable amount of money. They can aftermarket upfit it to whatever mild or wild that they want it to be.
Yeah. And they can make it, by that you mean they can make it less reliable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's really not a lot of reason to be modifying these 4Runners as much as we see them way overdone.
Yeah.
And that's because I think they're trying to get away from it being boring. When they need to embrace the fact that this is an incredible tool for the job of travel.
Yeah.
And who knows how much longer it's going to be around. Will the new Land Cruiser 250, will it replace the 4Runner? Will the 4Runner sunset, or will it be
the new 250 Land Cruiser? I think, it's a mild hybrid. It's a little bit more complicated. It's a little less proven.
Yeah.
But that vehicle has the potential to be number one on our list the next time we do this.
Absolutely. And it's going to be affordable, an affordable Land Cruiser with Toyota capability and reliability. So that is our top 10 new Overland SUVs list. So Matt, I got to ask you though, if you were to buy one and it'd be your daily driver tomorrow for mostly North America travel, what would it be?
G-Wagon.
G-Wagon.
No doubt. Okay.
So if you were to...
But it would have to be like really dirty and scratched.
That's cool.
Like
that's cool.
I don't know. It would just like...
The tan color is pretty good.
Yeah, which
with
is
the
like
rack and stuff.
Which is like a $17,000 Dizino option. But,
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, it would be a G because I just like it.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to like what I like.
Yeah. You're getting to pick right now.
Yeah.
So
what would it be for you?
Okay. So if it was for me, if it was for North America, it would probably be that Rivian R1S. If I wasn't in this industry and I was just driving to work every day would be the Grand Cherokee. I really like that car.
Yeah.
Like it's the most impressive car I've driven in a long time. Like the breadth of capability is really good. I would probably pick the Rivian R1S for North America because I really, really like it.
Yeah. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, I know that it doesn't exist, but they're going to be doing an electric G.
Oh.
And that just
is that's appealing to you?
Getting a little hot and bothered by the concept of that. An electric bank vault.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that with any of these vehicles that we've listed.
Well, we got one more question though.
Oh, okay.
So if you were ready to leave tomorrow to drive to Ushuaia and then ship to South Africa and drive up the length of Africa, which on this list would you pick?
G-Wagon. Because I want to drive it.
I'm a
car guy.
I got it.
Right? And I wouldn't have to modify it. You know, I do the professional package.
Yeah.
You know, it comes with a Falcon all-terrain tire already, and those are good Falcon tires. And that's personally what I would do because there are dictators, crooks, thieves, and people stealing from your 401k in every country on the planet, and they drive G-Wagons, and I could get it fixed.
And they probably would move out of your way. Like you probably wouldn't get hassled because they'd be like, who is this guy? What Russian mobster is this guy coming up right here, right now? So I think for me, if I was to drive, pick a vehicle to go and leave and drive around the world, I think I would pick the Grenadier because it has really served me so well on this trip. I would want to be back in that vehicle to do all of those miles because for Scott Brady, it just ticks all the box. It's got that G-Wagon feel to it that I love.
It's a better choice than my choice.
No, it's not a better choice.
No,
it's a Scotty choice.
Which is why it's a better choice. But it's really cool to go on the Grenadier website and to build out your vehicle because you're kind of, you can get sticker shock, but then you realize, oh wow, like I could legitimately buy this vehicle and outfit this vehicle and not have to do anything to drive around the world. Yeah, that's what I did. Battery, done. Auxiliary system, done. Roof rack, done.
Winch,
awning, done. Winch, done. Bumpers, like everything is
high capacity suspension, all of it.
So you've made the right choice. I'm just, see, you're a better person than me.
That is not true, Matt.
True. I'm a little bit, so I would have to be a G-Wagon guy.
Okay, I gotcha. You'd be right up there with the dictators hanging out.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, so the vehicle that I would drive around the world would be the Grenadier, but the vehicle I would recommend my sister drive around the world would be a 4Runner. That's right. Yeah. Exactly. So this was fun, Matt. Thanks for taking the time. We thank you all for listening. We appreciate all of you as listeners. If you want to reach out and tell us what your number one on this list would be, even if it's not on the list at all, please reach out and let us know. We'll make sure to mention it in a future podcast. But you can reach Matt at Matt Explorer on Instagram. And you can reach me at scott.a.brady on Instagram. And I'd love to hear what your number one is and why, not just what you would pick, but why you would pick it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.